In this lesson, we're going to look at how to factor trinomials when the leading coefficient is not equal to 1. We're still trying to reverse the FOIL process just like we were in the last lesson. The coefficient of the x squared term adds a new layer of complexity, but the strategy stays the same. We do everything the way we did it in the last lesson, but we just have more different choices to try out. And we still need to keep in mind that we need to check for a GCF before we get started. Now let's factor 2x squared plus 11x plus 12. There's not a common factor for all three terms, so I won't be able to factor out a GCF. But I know that this is a trinomial, so it's going to factor into two binomials. First times first has to make 2x squared. So something times something that makes 2, I could use 2 times 1. So let's put down 2x times x because that does make 2x squared. Now let's do the signs. This times this made a positive answer, so the signs are the same. And if they're the same, they're going to both be plus. So put down your two plus signs. Now, last times last makes 12. The factors of 12 are 1 times 12, 2 times 6, and 3 times 4. And how will I know which pair to use? Well, you cannot start by trying to see which two numbers add up to 11, because none of these numbers add up to 11 if both signs have to be the same. So the thing is, you just have to choose a pair of numbers to start with, stick them in here, and see if they give you the middle term that you want. So I'm going to start with 3 and 4. And I just guessed and put the 4 here. And now I have to see if my guess is correct. Outer times outer is 6x. Inner times inner is 4x. Together that adds up to 10x. But 10x is not what I wanted. I needed 11x. So this is not the correct arrangement. If I switch the 3 and the 4, like this, then I can try outer and inner again. This time, outer times outer is 8x. Inner times inner is 3x. And that adds up to 11x. So now my middle term is correct. And I already know first times first is 2x squared. And I already know last times last is 12. And now I know that the outer plus inner adds up to 11x. So this factoring is correct for this trinomial. And this is the strategy we have to go through every time. So now we're going to factor 5x squared minus 17x plus 6. Okay, we can see that it's a trinomial and there's no common factor, so we'll go ahead and write down our two sets of parentheses. Now first times first has to be 5x squared. So first times first is going to be 5x times 1x. The signs need to both be the same, but they both need to be negative. Now last times last has to be 6. The only two pairs of factors that make 6 are either 1 times 6 or 3 times 2. You have to choose a pair of factors to try first. I choose 3 times 2. And this might not be the correct arrangement. I might find that I have to rearrange the 3 and the 2. So let's just check it out. Outer times outer gives me negative 10x, which I've got here. Inner times inner gives me negative 3x. Together they add up to negative 13x, which is not what I wanted. Okay, let's try rearranging the 3 and the 2. And now let's try again. Outer times outer is negative 15x. Inner times inner is negative 2x. Together those add up to negative 17x, which is what we wanted. So this is correct. Okay, now notice again that 3 and 2 do not add up to 17. It's really not about what your two factors add up to, because this extra factor in the front changes everything. You have to think about outer plus inner. Remember, this is all about the FOIL process. So when we check for that middle term, we are checking the O and the I from the FOIL method. So you have to think about outer plus inner. Okay, so we've got our first times first, outer plus inner, and last times last, all giving us these three terms. We're in good shape for that one. Let's try another one. 5x squared minus 8x plus 3. Well, there's no common factor, but it is a trinomial, so put down two sets of parentheses. First times first has to be 5x squared. Let's put down 5x times 1x. The signs need to be the same. They're both going to be negative. Last times last has to be 3. Okay? Well, if I put the 3 here, outer times outer is going to make 15x. And that's not even close to what I want. But if I put the 3 here, then you'll see outer times outer gives us negative 5x. Inner times inner gives us negative 3x. Together that makes negative 8x, which is correct. So this one's correct already. Let's try a new one. Okay, again, no common factor. So we put down two pairs of parentheses. First times first has to make 7x squared. Let's go with 7x times 1x. The signs both need to be the same, and they both need to be positive. Okay, last times last needs to be 6. So again, our choices are either 2 times 3 or 1 times 6. Let's go with 2 times 3. So here I've put the 3 in this position. I've done outer times outer is 14x. Inner times inner is 3x. That's going to make the middle add up to 17x, which is not what we wanted. So this is not the right arrangement. Let's try them in the other order. Now, okay, so now I've got 2 and 3. So outer times outer is going to be 21x. Inner times inner is going to make 2x. Together that adds up to 23x. Still not what we want. That tells me, since we've tried 2 and 3 in both positions, that 2 and 3 is not the right pair of numbers. Let's now try 6 times 1. And I think if I put the 6 out here, I can have 7 times 6, which is 42. So I like that that's close to the middle term I want. Let's do that. Okay, outer times outer is 42x. Inner times inner is 1x. Together, 42 and 1 add up to 43. That's what we wanted, so this factoring is correct. And one more on this page. 2x squared plus 19x plus 35. Let's look for a common factor. We don't see one, so let's put down our two sets of parentheses. First times first has to be 2x squared. The signs both need to be the same, and they both need to be positive. 35 makes me think of 7 times 5. So now I need to decide if I want the 7 here or here. And I've put the 7 out here. So let's see if outer times outer gives us 14x, and inner times inner gives us 5x. Outer plus inner then adds up to 19x, which is what we wanted. So this factoring is correct. Here's a shortcut that you might find helpful sometimes. In fact, this will save you a lot of time if you'll learn to use this shortcut wisely. If there's no common factor in the trinomial, then there should never be common factors in the parentheses. And let's take a look at how this works. I've got 6x squared minus 17x plus 12. Notice there's no common factor for all three terms. So now I've got my two sets of parentheses put down, and first times first is going to be 6x squared. So I'm going to guess that this is 3x times 2x. And you know, it's always possible you might have to change your guess later on, but you have to start somewhere. So I'm going to put down 3x times 2x. And now the signs need to be the same, and they're both going to need to be negative. Now my choices for last times last are the factors of 12. 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. If I wanted to start with 1 times 12, then look what happens. I have a common factor here. 2x and 12 have a common factor of 6. However, I don't have a common factor in my problem, but I do have a common factor in my answer. So this could not possibly be the right answer. So what I'm going to do is think about what would happen if I move the 12 over here. Then I'd have a common factor with 3 and 12. So that tells me that there's nowhere for the 12 to go. So 1 times 12 is not the correct choice. Alright, now let's try 2 and 6. And I get kind of the same problem. I have a 6 here. So 2 and 6 have a common factor. If I put the 6 over here, 3 and 6 have a common factor. That means that's not the right pair of numbers either. And I'm left with 3 and 4. Now I want to be smart about how I arrange the 3 and the 4, because if I put the 3 here, then 3 and 3 gives me a common factor in this parentheses, and 2 and 4 gives me a common factor in this parentheses. So let's put it the other way around, where I have the 4 here and the 3 here. Now this could still not be correct, but at least it's possible for this to be the answer. So let's check out the outer plus inner, and we get outer times outer is negative 9x, inner times inner is negative 8x, and that's going to add up to negative 17x, which is correct. So notice all the time that saved us. We did not have to do all this adding and subtracting for these arrangements because we knew in advance that they wouldn't work. Now, not every trinomial can be factored. Some cannot. And if we can't factor a trinomial at all, we've tried all the choices and nothing will work, then we call that trinomial prime. Prime means it cannot be factored. So let's try out 2x squared plus 3x minus 15. So I know that first times first has to be 2x times 1x, and I know that the signs need to be different. Okay, now last times last has to be 15. My choices are 3 times 5 or 1 times 15. I'm going to go with 3 times 5 first, and I've put it down where the 5 is with the 2. Let's check outer plus inner. Outer times outer is 6x, inner times inner is minus 5x. Together that adds up to 1x. That's not what we needed, so this is not the correct factoring. Let's try rearranging the 5 and the 3. Okay, now outer times outer is going to make 10x. Inner times inner is going to make minus 3x. Together that adds up to 7x, but that's also not correct. So let's try 1 times 15. And you can try it in either place you like, the 15. Let's put the 15 here first and see if this works. Outer times outer is going to be 2x. Inner times inner is going to be negative 15x. So that's going to add up to negative 13x. Okay, that's not correct. Now let's try rearranging the 15 and the 1. So we'll put the 15 on the outside this time. And now outer times outer is 30x. Inner times inner is minus 1x. That's going to add up to 29x. But that's also not correct. But the problem is here we're out of choices. We've tried all the factors of 15 every way we can think of, and nothing works. And there's no other factors to try for 2x squared, because these are the only two factors that will give us 2x squared. So I'm out of choices. So when you try everything and you're out of choices, then you can say that your trinomial is prime. But before you jump and say it's prime, please make sure you've tried every possible combination of factors. Now I also want to be careful always to factor out any GCF first. So we're going to try just a few here together. I've got 4x squared plus 26x plus 30. Notice that this time, for the first time, we do see a common factor. And each of these can be divided by 2. So let's try to factor out the 2, but inside the parentheses I'll still have my 3 terms. So I haven't gone yet to the 2 sets of binomial terms because I need to get a good look at the new trinomial that I'm working with. Okay, 2 times 2x will give us 4x squared, or 2 times 2x squared rather. 2 times 13x will give us 26x, and 2 times 15 will give us 30. So here is my new trinomial that I'm going to try to break down. So on my next line, I'm going to keep my GCF of 2, but I'm going to go ahead and make 2 binomial sets of parentheses. And now I'm not working with this top trinomial anymore. I've taken it apart into these 2 pieces, and now I'm trying to take this apart. So first times first needs to be 2x squared. So that's going to be 2x times 1x. The signs need to be the same, and they both need to be positive. So let's get our 2 plus signs here. Last times last has to be 15. So of course I'm going to try 3 times 5 first. Let's put the 5 here and the 3 here. And now let's check outer plus inner. I'm going to get 3x, or 3 times 2x gives us 6x, and 5 times x gives us 5x. Now, oops, that's not the right arrangement because 6 and 5 make 11, and I needed 13. So obviously I'm going to have to try to rearrange the 3 and the 5. And now let's see how it goes. Outer times outer gives us 10x. Inner times inner gives us 3x. Now that's going to make 13x, and that's what we wanted. So this is the correct factoring for this trinomial. Alright, and here's another one. 9y squared plus 33y minus 60. I look at all 3 of my terms here, and I see that I can divide each of these by 3. So let's do that. 3 times 3y squared will give us 9y squared. 3 times 11y will give us 33y. And 3 times 20 will give us 60. So I can now forget this top trinomial and work on taking apart this one in the parentheses. So keep your common factor, and we're going to go with 3y times 1y to get 3y squared. The signs need to be different, so put down a plus and a minus, or a minus and a plus, doesn't matter, because if it needs to be fixed later, we'll be able to fix it. Alright, now I have to make a guess for the last times last. My choices are 1 times 20, 2 times 10, or 4 times 5. I'm going to go with 4 times 5, and let's see if outer plus inner will give us the middle term that we want, which is 11y. Okay, we got lucky this time. Outer times outer is 15y. Inner times inner is minus 4y. Together those add up to 11y, which is what we wanted, so this factoring is correct. So now we're just going to do several examples together, and we always want to remember to look for the common factor first. And really, practice is the essential ingredient on these problems. Nobody is going to get really good at this without a whole lot of practice and trial and error. So let's try to factor 3x squared minus 7x minus 6. We're going to set down our 2 sets of parentheses. And first times first has to be 3x times 1x. The signs need to be different. Now last times last has to make 6. So I'm going to think about what we learned about common factors, that I can't put common factors of 6, or I can't put common factors of 3 in the same parentheses with the 3. So let's try factors of 2 and 3. Of course, I know I can't put the 3 here, so I've arranged it this way. And now let's see if outer plus inner gives us what we wanted. Okay, outer times outer is going to give us 9x. Inner times inner is going to give us minus 2x. That's going to add up to 7x. Now this is good because we got the number we wanted, but it's not the right sign. We wanted negative 7x. Well, this is an easy fix. When you get the number you want, but it's not the right sign, simply trade signs. That means all your numbers are in the right place. All you have to do is change signs. And now let's try our outer plus inner again. Now outer times outer is going to be minus 9x. Inner times inner is going to be 2x. So that's going to add up to negative 7x, which is what we wanted. Okay, let's look at another one. 2x squared minus 5x minus 12. I do not have a common factor here, so I'm going to set down 2 sets of parentheses. First times first is going to be 2x times 1x. The signs need to be different. And last times last has to be 12. But remember, I can't put a common factor in the same parentheses with the 2. So let's try 3 times 4, but let's arrange it so that the 4 is not in the same parentheses with the 2. And let's see what outer plus outer gives us. Outer, or 4x times 2x gives us 8x. Inner times inner gives us minus 3x. That adds up to positive 5x. But that's the right number, but it's not the right sign. So all I have to do is change the signs. And now we're going to be able to check it and get outer plus outer is negative 8x plus 3x, which is negative 5x. So this is the right arrangement of numbers and signs. Okay, 3x squared minus 25x minus 28. Again, no common factor. And first times first needs to be 3x times 1x. The signs need to be different. Last times last needs to be 28. My first thought is 7 times 4, but it could also be 2 times 14, or 1 times 28. Let's see what happens with 7 times 4. Alright, if I try outer times outer, I get 21x minus 4x, but that's 17x. That's not what we wanted. And so there's no good changing the signs. If we try rearranging the numbers, we're going to get 12x minus 7x. Well, that's 5x, so that's also not going to work. Let's try, instead of 4 times 7, let's try 2 times 14, or 28 times 1 rather. Alright, so here's my 28 times 1. Outer times outer gives us 3x. Inner times inner gives us minus 28x. Oh, that does add up to negative 25x. So this is the correct arrangement. Alright, 15y squared plus 13y minus 2. No common factor, but I will set down 2 sets of parentheses. Let's try 3y times 5y for 15y squared. The signs need to be different. Last times last has to be 2. So it's kind of got to be 1 times 2, but which way do I arrange it? Let's try 2 times 1. Now outer times outer will be 3y. Inner times inner will be minus 10y. When I add up 3y minus 10y, I get minus 7y, which is not what we wanted. So let's try rearranging the 1 and the 2. Now outer times outer is going to be 6y. Inner times inner is going to be minus 5y. Okay, that's 1y. That didn't help. So what this tells me is, since I don't have any other numbers to try for 1 and 2, maybe the 3 and the 5 are not the right choice. So let's try 15 times 1. Okay, now outer times outer is going to be 30y minus 1y. Well, that's not going to work. So let's try rearranging the 2 and the 1 again. So if I put the 2 in here, outer times outer is going to be 15y. Inner times inner is going to be minus 2y. And finally we get the 13y that we were after. So this one took a little persistence, but we finally got it. Okay, let's try 6x squared plus 21x plus 9. Finally, I do have a common factor here, and it's 3. So if I factor out the 3, I can save myself a lot of work. And my new trinomial is going to be 2x squared plus 7x plus 3. And now this is the trinomial that I'm going to try to factor. So first times first is going to have to be 2x times 1x. The signs are going to both need to be positive. And last times last is going to need to be 3. So I've arranged it this way, and let's check. Outer times outer is going to be 6x. Inner times inner is going to be 1x. So 6x plus 1x is 7x. That's the correct middle term. So this one is correct on the first try. And last one for this page. Let's do 8x squared plus 6x plus 4. Notice that each of these can be divided by 2. Okay, now the trinomial I'm working with is 9x squared plus 3x plus 2. So I keep my common factor of 2, but first times first, I'm going to try 3x times 3x. The signs need to be the same. They both need to be plus. And last times last has to be 2 times 1. So let's see if outer times outer and inner times inner add up to 3. No, I don't believe they do. So now let's try a different arrangement. I erased the whole thing because switching the 1 and the 2 wouldn't have helped since I had 3x times 3x here. Rearranging the 1 and the 2 would not have made any difference. So I'm going to go ahead and try 9 times 1. And still need the same signs. And let's see if putting 2 here will give us the middle term that we want. Now outer times outer is going to be 18. Inner times inner is going to be 1x. 18x and 1x are not going to add up to 3. If I rearrange the 2 and the 1, then I'll have 9x on the outside and 2x on the inside, and that still won't be 3. So this trinomial would not break down. So what I'm going to do is just erase where I tried to factor it into 2 binomials and leave it this way. But now I'm not going to call it prime because I did factor out the GCF, so it wasn't completely unfactorable. It's just that it wouldn't go to the next step. So it's fine to leave it like this if you can't get it to go on to the next level of factoring.